welcome back. This is the post-conference to an observation I did with Stacy Wayans. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We're here to talk about your observation that I did with you on Monday. So I have a few questions that I would like to ask you.
Okay.
First of all, in general, how successful was the lesson?
I think the lesson was 95% successful.
And do you feel that your students achieved their learning target?
I definitely think they achieved their learning target. And I said 95% successful because there was a lot of wiggling going on, more so than usual.
So how do you know that they achieved the learning target?
I called them over after the lesson and I did a one-on-one with them, like a TOTD, verbal, and they answered the questions. That's how I keep track of who knows what and who doesn't, who needs additional help.
Okay, to what extent did classroom procedures, your student conduct, your physical space contribute or hinder the learning that went on?
I think it contributed because they're so used to doing the same thing every day. We have that routine. They know when it's math time. They know we do the same thing every day. So it establishes the routine so they know what to expect.
Did you have to depart from your plan at all?
No.
If you had the opportunity to teach this same lesson again, would to the same group of students, would you change anything differently and why?
Actually, I wouldn't change anything. 'Cause I thought it was a solid lesson. And I know my kids, so they would probably perform the same way if I did the same lesson again, which I have done the same lesson before, and it's still the same results. Because either they know it or they don't. And I know the ones who don't. So they get additional help.
Okay, two different times during the lesson that I observed, you increased your wait time, which gave students the same opportunity as peers. Is that common that you do that?
Yes, because some kids need more time than others. I have some that's lower level, so I make sure they have a little additional time without them knowing they have additional time.
Okay. And of course, managing student behavior, it was never an issue. Your expectations are always on point. They're always known. It's very evident in the way they respond to you.
Thank
that
you.
Have expectations established. What could you have done or said to ask to push the students more accurately to reflect on their own understanding of the concept? How could you have pushed them further?
What do you mean? Explain that again.
Like when you were asking the students to come up with their equation, and they did it, and they came up to the front and they were given your equation. How could you get them to think higher level from there? Like, would you have them do something else as
They
well?
could have wrote the equation on the whiteboard.
Okay.
And sometimes we do that because it's a different mind, different set of
Right.
thinking.
Okay.
They write them. And some of the ones who can't write, they draw the picture out. Because the lower ones, they can't write the equations. They don't know the numbers, but they can draw
Right.
the pictures.
Okay. And what would you do to help reteach the students who didn't understand? Because I noticed there was a couple of your girls in the group that when you were doing the equations and you would say, show me 7, they just put up any number of fingers. Now, your whole entire class, for the most part, they did it correctly.
Right.
So how would you go back and help reteach those particular kids?
Those are the ones that I called over to the table at the end, and we use manipulatives. And I sorted out with smaller numbers.
What do you see as the next step in this plan for math?
Higher numbers.
To what?
I want to go to 15, then go to 20.
And what do you see as the next step for your professional growth for addressing those needs that you identified?
Professional growth. That's a good question, Ms. O'Donoghue. Professional growth. Seeing that we have 32 days left in school, I just want to survive the rest of this year, and then I'm sure we'll have math PDs over the summer. But I have enough knowledge to get me through the next 32 days.
All right. How do you use your data to guide your planning and your instruction?
That's how I do my groups, my small groups. Once we do the TOTDs, I look and see how the numbers are following, and usually there's a pattern. And those are the ones that I pull together and make my groups out of.
Okay. And how is individual progress shared or celebrated with the students? So what way do you communicate to them?
We do it as a whole group celebration, and even the smallest game, if it's a point, we still celebrate like it was 20 points. So the kids don't know who's made the most games. They just know they all make games.
Awesome. And how do you communicate with the families about what they're learning as far as your math instruction and information, as well as their student progress?
We use a lot of Class Dojo to communicate with the parents, and occasionally there'll be a note that goes home in the folder. But most of the time it's Class Dojo or a parent-teacher conference, or I just call the parents and just touch bases with them.
Do they get information sent home as to like what you're studying?
Yes, we have a newsletter that goes home every week, and it's in
Okay.
the newsletter. What we're studying and what we're getting ready to study.
Okay. All right, can you describe your role in the students' PLCs?
Can you elaborate, please?
When you're in your PLCs with your kindergarten team, what is your role?
My role is to bring the data from my class, and we usually let it all out to see who's doing what. If scores are, some class scores might be lower than the others, we talk about how was this taught. It might be taught differently, or we just kind of discuss and dissect everybody's data to kind of see if we're all on the same page.
Then from there, do you go back and reteach?
Go back and reteach.
Okay.
We always reteach them, always.
All right. What do you believe to be characteristics of an exemplary teacher?
That is a loaded question. I don't think you can measure it on paper. I think it shows how you treat your kids and how you teach your kids and what kind of community you have with your classroom. Because on paper, anybody can be an exemplary teacher. It depends on who's grading you. I think it comes from your heart. It's your passion, what you do. And sometimes it doesn't show on a piece of paper.
And what are your personal goals to maintain your professionalism, such as integrity, confidentiality, fairness, being open-minded?
I try to do all those things. Some days are better than others. But I just try to come in each day with a positive attitude, knowing that each day is a new day. Like I tell my kids, they went home on a bad color one day, tomorrow's a new day. And I try to remind myself of that tomorrow's a new day. Sometimes the scores are not high as I want them. I know I've taught my butt off. I've given it 110%, 150, and it sometimes just doesn't work out that way. So I keep reminding myself, they're only 6, they're only 5. It's going to be okay.
Now, I would like to go over with you some evidence that I found in your lesson. You were very, very heavy on the student engaged, which is awesome. If you look, 26 times I counted that your students were engaged throughout your whole lesson. You used assessment throughout the whole entire thing, so 18 different times I noted that it was assessment, and it was when the students would get up there and they would say, how do you know? And they had to prove that. As far as questioning, you had students up there that would give a problem and then it didn't sound quite right, so you would question them and make them redo it. And so 6 different times you did that. You're communicating with students you're always communicating with your students, you're always talking to them, but there are 9 times where you were given very direct compliments, like kiss your brain, and you did a good job today. Physical space, I noted 2 times you all generally stayed in the same area. With the way your classroom's set up, I don't think there's any really other way you could have done that, you know, to be able to get a whole group on there. Managing student behavior only marked once because you have excellent control of your class. There's only one time that you said, what was it? I don't know why you're talking, and immediately that child stopped. Okay, so they do know your expectations. As far as respect and rapport, all of them, you had that rapport with them. You can joke with them. They never get offended. There was one time that I marked that it was very respectful, and it was when you gave wait time. It was to one of your girls that was really struggling, and that showed a lot of respect for them. So I think you're doing an excellent job with those domains.
Well, thank you, Ms. O'Donoghue.
So do you have any questions for me about your lesson? Anything specifically?
No, I don't.
All right, well, thank you for
Thank you.
letting me observe you.
Anytime.
All right, thank you.